bubble, blip. Yeah, blip, bubble. Detroit is home to many wonderful things: Motown, the White Stripes, M&M, but most importantly of all, it is home to Detroit pizza. And in this video, we're going to show you how to make one in Rockbox. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is make our dough, our Detroit dough. So we're going to start with flour. We've got 310 grams of bread flour. We're using bread flour rather than 00 flour because we want a tighter crumb. And we've got 10 grams of salt. So next up, water. We've got 220 grams of kind of warm water. And we're going to add to that 10 grams of yeast. So we're using fresh yeast here. If you want to use instant dry, you can. It's generally about 1/3 of the amount. Next up, our dough hook. So just going to add our dough hook to the machine. Now we can start in working. So we can start in mixing away, add that liquid to our dry ingredients and mix it on a medium speed for about 3 minutes. Because it's quite a high hydration dough, Detroit pizza, you'll find it will cling to the sides quite a lot. So just in between mixing, every now and again, turn it off, give it a little scrape down. If you haven't got one of these, get one. And if you can't get one, use an ice cream lid and just cut out this sort of shape. So we've mixed that for about 3 minutes on medium speed and it's come together to form a nice dough. We're just going to leave that to rest for 10 minutes and then come back to it. So the mix has been off for 10 minutes, giving that a nice rest, everything can relax, and now we're just going to combine it again for a further 2 minutes. Still on a medium speed. So we'll be left with a quite sloppy looking, very tacky, but smooth dough. Detroit pizza is a very high hydration dough, meaning that it's very tacky, quite challenging to work with. But at this point, we don't really need to touch it anyway. So using your dough scraper again, just scrape everything off the dough hook, don't want to waste any. And now we're going to oil our bowl. So just a little squirt of olive oil in there. This is going to do a couple of things, as well as the dough kind of being enriched with this oil and stopping it sticking. Your oily hand is going to make it much easier to work with the dough. So again, using the dough scraper, still not using my hand. So now your oily fingers can go underneath the dough and just kind of stretch it over itself. And all of a sudden, it's easy to work with. So now we can shape it. So once we've got a nice shape, just pop him back in the oiled bowl. And that's it. We're going to cover him with cling film and leave it for 2 hours. So this sauce really lends itself to this style of pizza, this Detroit deep dish pizza. We're going to enrich it with butter, we've got oregano, we've got chili flakes. It is absolutely packed full of flavour. You could use any sauce you want. If you've got a tomato sauce left over from making Neapolitan pizzas, you can just use that. We're going to add a tablespoon of unsalted butter and a tablespoon of olive oil. So we're using butter and oil in here, and that's going to give us a really rich depth of flavour to the tomato sauce. So while that is melting away, we're going to get 2 cloves of garlic. And we're going to finely slice them. You can grate them if you want. Okay, so as soon as the garlic goes in, you can add a bit of seasoning. So a good bit of salt, a bit of pepper. So next up, we've got 1 teaspoon of oregano and a good pinch of chili flakes, quite a generous pinch. And we've got 1 red onion that we quartered. And we've got 2 good-sized sprigs of basil. They can go in as well. So the basil and the onion will be coming out when we finish the sauce. That's why we don't need to chop it finely or anything like that. And you want to do this for kind of another minute or so on a nice low heat again, keeping an eye not to burn the garlic. I've got 2 tins of San Marzano peeled plum tomatoes. And I've just given them a little pulse with a hand blender, just so they're not completely whole. And just give it another little stir, bring it all together. And we're going to let that blip away for about an hour. Our dough has been at room temperature for 2 hours and it now looks like this. So this recipe makes enough for 2 Detroit pizzas in an 8 by 10 inch pan. And you can use any kind of flat tray, that'll be absolutely fine. But if you can get a Detroit pan, do. These trays were originally made from blue steel. Originated in Detroit, where they were used to collect motor parts. Legend has it that Gus Guerrera found his mother-in-law's Sicilian pizza dough, couldn't find a tray to cook it in, and chucked it in one of these motor part trays. These slanted edges that are at the side, they allow the cheesy fat to drip down the edges and fry the crust of the pizza. So we're going to line our pan with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And again, just as when we were proving the dough, the same thing applies. Our oily hand is going to make the dough much easier to handle. The pan is nicely oiled. We're just going to set that to one side and get the dough out. So we're not too fussed about weight here, but just want to kind of split it in half. And if you're not going to do 2 pizzas in the same night, this will keep for 24 hours in the fridge. Just cling film it up, keep it in the fridge until required. Just lift him up, get him in there. And now we're going to start shaping him. So just kind of use your fingers. You can see I've not gone all the way to the corners. That's okay, because we're going to proof this for a further ½ hour. And at the end of that, we can just gently kind of push right to the edges. So all we need to do now is cover it again, leave it for 30 more minutes, and then it's pizza time. Our Detroit dough has been sat in our tray now for 30 minutes. And you can leave it for kind of up to an hour if you want to. You'll just get a bit more of a crumb structure, a bit more of a dense pizza. The toppings actually go the wrong way round on Detroit pizza. So the first thing I'm going to do is put on some pepperoni. So yeah, if you're lucky enough to live near a good deli or a butcher that does charcuterie and things like that, speak to them and have a look on our community, our Gozney community. People are always on there offering up advice on doughs, ingredients, that sort of thing. So traditionally we would use brick cheese, which is a really high fat content cheese. Unfortunately, brick cheese is quite hard to get where I am. We are using a mix. So we've got 120 grams of mozzarella, 80 grams of Monterey Jack, 200 grams in total if you couldn't do the maths yourself. And it's very important that the cheese goes right to the edges. You could stop there if you wanted, you could get this in the oven, but personally, I like to add an extra layer of pepperoni, an extra topping. And then finally, we're going to add our tomato sauce. So we can add this before the pizza goes in the oven, or we can add it when the pizza comes out post-bake. I like to add it before, because then you get the marriage of the tomato and the cheese all coming together that we just associate with good pizza. So we turn the Rockbox dial down to its lowest setting, and we're going to cook this in the front third of the oven. We don't want too much extreme heat. So we've put our Detroit pan into the oven widthways rather than lengthways, and this is very important. If we go in lengthways, we're going to end up with raw dough at the front and burnt dough at the back. So that's had 4.5 minutes, and now we're going to give it a quick 180 rotate. So you may have noticed the Rockbox we're using today is in fact bright red, and this is an investor edition Rockbox. It's part of our crowdfunding campaign that you can find more details about in the description below. 5 minutes, it's had a 180 rotate, and it's had 5 minutes more, all on a low flame, all in the front third of the oven. Now's the good bit, now we get to eat it. So next up, we're going to grab ourselves a palette knife. We're just going to start loosening around the edges. Just as he cools, I like to grate over a little bit of Parmesan as well, because it looks sexy and it tastes delicious. Serrated knife, rather than a pizza slice, tends to work better, because this edge is so crispy. So always save yourself a corner piece, because in the corner, you get double the crust. Now I'm going to eat some. Look at the deck as well. Look at the base. See that? That is crispy, it's shiny, it's delicious. This is decadent, this is really unhealthy. This is the best style of pizza I've ever tried. I love the crispiness of the edge. Listen. Don't forget, when you make this Detroit pizza, share it with us. Share it with us on Instagram, on Facebook, #GozneyKitchen. We want to see that hashtag, that's what we're following, and we want to see what you're making. Don't forget to like and subscribe, lots of exciting stuff coming up. Which way's low? That's low. Okay. I've been a chef for 14 years, you wouldn't know, would you? So yeah, don't burn the garlic, otherwise you have to start again, and that's really annoying, and you know, people that do that are idiots. We just burnt the garlic. The toppings actually go the wrong way round on Detroit pizza. So, bottomings, if you will. I don't get it. Well, toppings, but then they're at the bottom, so they're bottomings. We also put some in the middle, and I was then going to say they were middlings, but now I'm just going to leave it. So Detroit pizza is probably my favourite style of pizza in the world. If you disagree, tell us in the comments what your favourite style is. Is it New York? Is it Neapolitan? What is it? Because the answer is Detroit. That is the correct answer.